up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Friday. So good to be here with all of you. I hope all of your 2026 magic is coming true as the start of the year. Appreciate all of you guys for stopping on by. What a great show we have for you. What a great weekend we have in store for you in the NFL. Jake's top 10s going into the playoffs. We got a lot to discuss on that. Wherever and however you may be watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your day. We're stacked because we got 3 interviews here today. Former NFL tight end Ed Smith, former NFL corner Mark McMillian, and host of Locked On UCLA, Zachary Anderson-Yoxsimer is going to be joining us here, talking UCLA transfer portal and, of course, college hoops, because I got to get into that. Just excited for what tonight and especially for what this weekend is going to give us. But let's start with the crazy game that we had last night. It was a late night. We got snow here in Denver. And first and foremost, congratulations to the Miami Hurricanes for making it into the national championship. Miami, they are such a talented group. And what's crazy about this is because for years, and even after the 2001 Miami Hurricanes that were chock-filled of talented defensive and offensive players, they are now in the big dance. And so what I looked at that was, and everybody was all talking about the crucial pass interference call that should have been made. I didn't see no pass interference. The defender didn't turn his head. He defended with both his hands up, and that was the last of the game. But a few takeaways about what this game was all about. Miami is just that talented defensively. Ruben Bain and multiple others, they can get the pass rush going. Plus, they can also defend up and into the pass. So I think the Hurricanes, they made a strong case for themselves, especially in a conference like the ACC, where Duke ended up winning this conference. Miami goes into this thing in the top 10, the top 12 playoff, and ends up shocking a lot of people. They absolutely held their opponents up to low scores. They took care of Texas A&M, and they ended up taking care of Ohio State, which was what was crazy. And then it led all the way up to Ole Miss. And they fought tooth and nail, got pressures, got interceptions, and it was a great game. In Miami, Carson Beck, and this is the other thing that's also incredible. You ended up getting a Georgia transfer, and he may not look as pretty as far as a quarterback stature is concerned. I don't think he's as highly talented, but is productive enough to give you throws. 23 of 37, 268 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. It's good enough. I was watching a bunch of the drives from Miami. They're running the football. Carson Beck is throwing a couple of throws that got them downfield. Now, I would probably say on the other side, if you're looking at talented quarterback, how about Trinidad Chambliss? He was really good for Ole Miss. But I will say this is a classic because college football, the way you look at it, no matter what, it's not pretty, and they are not in the happy business. But that is some damn good football, and we got it last night. And now you got tonight between Oregon and Indiana. And Indiana is more of the highly capable, highly motivated, highly physical team in the Big Ten, squaring up against another Big Ten matchup against Oregon, who they last met in Autzen, and they did whatever they wanted to the Ducks. So this Miami team is determined, and Mario Cristobal deserves all the credit. I mean, I think Miami, they deserve to be here. All of their players, highly talented. They made every single play that they possibly could, and they made it a fight. Ole Miss, I will give them credit because in the last couple days or in the last week or few weeks, it seems like, I mean, they had to deal with Lane Kiffin going to LSU. Now they're probably going to end up facing them next year in their schedule. And Ole Miss is going to be coming out with their bellies on fire. And to me, Ole Miss deserves all the credit in the world for making it a great game. Trinidad Chambliss is really, really talented. They got some really good wide receivers. They'll get more of them up and along the way. But Kwan Lacey, he's a really good running back. And I think it should be noted that the SEC, and as competitive as it has been in the last few years, this has been very good competitive football. And without Alabama and without Ohio State, like, college football is still going to continue to be much more interesting and much more fun-filled and tribal. And this is exactly with what you pay for. And remember, all of us as consumers and all of us as college football fans, we want to see great stories. Miami in the last few years, like they've been up, down, up, down. I mean, last year, they were coming off of a year when they had Cam Ward and didn't make the playoff. Then this year, they got Ruben Bain. They got a bunch of other really good guys up front I like. And even the secondaries that are also coming in, popping, and they've even get good pass deflections and interceptions. So I like with what Cristobal has been able to do. This is a really good, talented football team, and they deserve all the credit for their victory on Thursday night. So I'm transitioning to this because, of course, this is going to be an interesting couple of days, especially when it comes to the coaching hires. So just recently, Mike McDaniel ended up getting fired up in Miami. So the Dolphins now are looking for a GM and coach. The Falcons are looking for a GM and coach. Now, the teams that I know, and I'm just kind of booking this my own. When I look at 8 of these teams, there's 8 of them now that have open job vacancies. And to me personally, it's what every year you get with the NFL is you're going to get 7 to 8 different teams that are going to want coaches. You may be lucky you end up getting 9, depending on how Pittsburgh ends up playing this weekend in the wild card. But the attractive jobs, because I was talking about the Giants, I'm not sure if it's a strong enough job, in my opinion. It's got to take a certain coach to make that happen. But the good news is you got really good on the pass defending when it comes to their offensive line. They just got to help out on the run game. You've also got a really good quarterback in Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo for the run game. You just need to be able to help the offensive line when it comes to the run protection. Now, the other thing is move one of these defenders to go and get some draft capital. I don't understand why with having those 4 defenders up front, why you got to end up overloading. And I get it. You don't really have a whole lot of question marks, especially when it comes to your secondary. You could go and address one in this draft. So get the capital that you can. I still say move off of Kayvon Thibodeau because he's going to want a contract somewhere and somebody will pay up the money, but at least you get the draft capital from there. Another attractive job, and this is what's crazy, because I kind of predicted this for Pittsburgh. But right now, Baltimore has an opportunity to shake things up. And in my opinion, Brian Flores is a really good defensive-minded coach, and he's young, and he's learned a lot since he'd been in New England, being labeled as a Belichick guy, and then as a defensive coordinator for Minnesota. And in my opinion, this organization doesn't need a culture shift. Eric DeCosta and Steve Bisciotti, they're really good. They're great business people. So, and the culture, they're strong, they're physical, they get after it, and they're never out of games. And you got Lamar Jackson, a star quarterback, who's winning you 75 to 80% of your games. Brian Flores would work perfectly with this. And as long as you get an offensive coordinator that works with the offensive side of the ball and continues to elevate Lamar Jackson, because this hasn't been the best of his quarterback play. It really hasn't. I know injuries have been a deal, inconsistencies, whether it's been play calling or such, it has been difficult. But we know that we were coming to this point with John Harbaugh, and John Harbaugh is going to get another gig, but it's going to be more of a coaching, of a culture elevating type job. So that's where I think Baltimore would be in a perfect situation. And now Miami is in a really good spot because now, from the sources that are basically told, is now Miami is going to be looking for a new coach and GM. And the talks of this is that they're looking for a culture coach. John Harbaugh fits the bill. And they were close with as far as their connections and their talks. And I think John Harbaugh could definitely work in South Beach because Miami needed some oomph. They need some juice. They also need a bunch of really good coordinators, coaching, in this coaching staff that's going to help them with as far as their defense. Because run defending was really good for the Dolphins. They were able to end up getting pressures. And then the minute that Jalen Phillips is gone, they need to now go and get another edge rusher. And who knows exactly who's going to be available up for grabs. But they definitely need to get an edge rusher. They need to get a bunch of really good players. Honestly, they're going to move on from Tua, and I can already see that happening, and it's understandable. But again, I think Miami is in a perfect prime position to where you've got New England that's shifting up their culture. You've got Buffalo, who stays competitive, and it may not have looked this way, but I do believe, though, Miami has a chance to really shake some things up. And I think John Harbaugh would be perfect for this. And for 18 years in Baltimore after Brian Billick, I think he would definitely take from his roots and what he's done and take that and move forward with it. I think it would work perfectly. So it's going to be interesting with these coaching jobs. We'll talk a little bit more about it probably toward the end of the game of the stream here, and really give my thoughts on it as far as who's a really good coaching fit and hire for a lot of these other coaching jobs. Because right now, do you really think anybody wants that Titans job with the ownership and the way that things are going? Yeah, Cam Ward's attractive. He gives you ticket sales, but you need to get some talented players around him and help him to at least get him on track. So I think this will be interesting. Good stuff. Mark McMillian around the corner, Zachary Anderson-Yoxsimer, and Ed Smith. We're going to be talking a lot about UCLA, transfer portal, Nico Imalava, and college hoops thus far. Plus, Mark McMillian will be talking a lot about Philadelphia, the playoffs, and even the Kansas City Chiefs and what they need to do for next season. And also with Ed Smith, the Falcons now look like a really good, attractive job that needs a GM and a coach. And I know exactly the fits up from there. We'll talk more about that and more playoff football as well. So I'm excited for it. Don't go anywhere. Stay in your seats. It's going to be a lot of fun here up and on the show. All right, 2026 has officially kicked off. And now we know one opponent, and we'll know who the next opponent will be in the national championship for college football. So to get geared up for that, go on to paydayfantasy.com. Payday Fantasy, the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show, that gives you everything you need to with player pick'ems, prop bets, all of it. Payday Fantasy is there for you, only about a click and a tap away on your mobile device. Download it on mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. Check out all of the latest matchups, head-to-heads, all of it that you need to know for the up-and-coming weekend. And then also, not to mention, get yourselves up to date with college football in the national championship. Who's going to go off from there? Really, really loving these matchups. And you will too with Payday Fantasy. Check it out for yourself. Paydayfantasy.com. Download it on your mobile device to go play in the App Store. When you sign up, $5 free entry in your first sign up just by choosing us. And then also 100% deposit matchup of up to $100 by using the promo code SNAKE. That's all you got to use is the promo code SNAKE. So use that for 100% deposit matchup of up to $100. The more you keep depositing, the more chances to win. Check out Payday Fantasy for yourself. Sign up, pick the player, pick the outcome, and get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com, and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Mark McMillian around the corner. I'm excited about this one, and I'm excited for Wild Card Weekend because there's so much to discuss, break down, and also our top 10 NFL teams going in to the weekend. So I was thinking about this because a lot of different stories, a lot of different narratives from around the league, and I think this is going to be interesting of a game tonight between Oregon and Indiana. And Indiana has shown that they have been an absolute brute force in the Big Ten, because without Ohio State and without Michigan, this is now the opportunity for Indiana to really make some serious noise. Now, Oregon, I have a lot of really good respects for. I really do. Oregon, in my opinion, for years, I had always thought that Oregon could get there, but then the issue that happens is it's either a play, it's either a certain situation that happens, and then they then lose it. They then lose it. It's close but no cigar. And I love Dan Lanning. Okay, Dan Lanning is a damn good coach. Coached this team up. Dante Moore is a really talented quarterback. And it sounds to me like the potentiality is Dante Moore will be declaring for the NFL draft. And when he does, he will be one of the top quarterbacks next to Fernando Mendoza. And many people have had question marks about Fernando Mendoza as far as just where he sits and what's going to happen if he's ended up taking number 1 overall, because you know who's got the number 1 overall pick. It's the Raiders. And the Raiders, like I said, 2 offensive linemen I really do like, Colton Miller and Jackson Powers-Johnson. But after that, you got to fix this O-line. This O-line has not looked as competitive. It has not looked at it's fascinating to me when I think about how the Raiders build, and then not to mention because here's the thing, the Raiders have an opportunity to make some serious noise. They got to end up and my big thing is that with Fernando Mendoza, he's a really good, talented quarterback that can distribute the football quick, make quick decisions. The other thing that's also been really impressive about Fernando is since being at Cal and then being at Indiana, he has a 70% completion percentage. So he distributes the ball pretty quickly. But the other thing that I've also noticed, and this was actually a good point to note, is that when it comes to the front of the interior of the offensive line, like he's had happy feet. And now with Indiana, because they beefed up their O-line, they got a bunch of really good talented weapons. And the big thing is, I look at this, and I think that when it comes to Fernando Mendoza, and when an organization who we know needs a change and needs to have a culture uplift, I ultimately believe those teams, because it needs to be a lot addressed. And I know they need a quarterback, but they need a lot more than that. Beef up the offensive line. I feel like with Max Crosby, I think this relationship seems torn. And the big part is that when I think about this, it's very difficult. I feel as though that Fernando can make it happen, but it's going to take a lot. You got to get the coach. I know that Tom Brady and John Spidek is going to be up and into the room discussing this as far as their head coaching search and then with their draft pick afterward. But this will be an interesting game. I like Oregon, their pass rush. But remember, last time when they were up and in Autzen, Indiana was physical, and they did whatever that they wanted to against the Ducks. So that means Dante Moore really has to be sharp. They got to get pass rush up and into the interior side against Indiana. And what Fernando Mendoza has to do is continue to just sling the ball, get quick reads, run the football up front, and then find ways to get first downs and get the possession on your side. And I think this game tonight is going to be a great testament to what that will look like for Indiana's pathway to the national championship. Time for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
All right. Man, so going up and into the news, there was a lot of talk. So as far as with Trinidad Chambliss, after a immaculate game that we got last night, the NCAA has denied quarterback Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss his waiver for the 6th year. So which means his college career is going to be potentially over. And what this will mean, does that mean Trinidad is going to end up joining the NFL draft, which is a possibility? It's unfortunate for Ole Miss, but that means that they're probably going to end up having to either recruit or look at a quarterback up and into the transfer portal, because there is a bunch of them. I mean, we watched Indiana take Josh Hoover from TCU. There's a bunch of different options, but Trinidad Chambliss, I like him. I think truthfully, the way that I've seen his game, he's mobile, he's accurate, he can get after it. I think Trinidad is going to have a case for himself if he ends up declaring for the draft. And it's going to take a really good offensive-minded coach, depending on the spots and depending on the builds that they have up front. That'll be perfect for him, because here's the thing. I watched Jackson Dart in New York, and you know they got better at their pass defense. Okay, they were able to protect him. They did very well. And I would say continue to build more of that, but that's where you're going to need that offensive coach. That's where he's going to come in, bring in play designs and schemes that are more creative and innovative, that are going to fit for a type of quarterback of his stature, that makes it much more easier and simplified. So again, it's unfortunate for Ole Miss, but to me, I truthfully think that this team, they're going to end up looking into the transfer portal. No big deal. It happens. But I have really good hopes that Trinidad is going to have a really good, bright future somewhere, depending on where he's at. All right, well, the Memphis Grizzlies now, after what's been happening in the latest with Ja Morant, and now the Memphis Grizzlies, after the last couple of years of having to deal with their star guard, Ja Morant now is being entertained with trade offers for other teams. So unfortunately, with Ja Morant, the 26-year-old, he is under contract until the 27-28 season and is eligible to sign up for a 3-year, $178 million extension this summer. Averaging 19 points, 7.6 assists, and 28.3 minutes per game this season, while shooting a career-low 40% from the field and 20% from three-point range. I'm just going to be honest and blunt with you. I like Ja Morant to an extent, and I thought since he came out of Murray State, the guy's athletic, The guy can drive to the basket. But I think in the last couple of years since we've seen him in Memphis, it's gone downhill. Like the morality's not there, the chemistry's not there. And honestly, Memphis, because I remember this organization when they had Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, Tony Allen, and Mike Conley, they were very physical. They got after you when it came to the perimeters. So with John Morant, he needs a fresh new start. I mean, go look at what happened with Trae Young. Trae Young's in Washington now. He had a new start now after coming out of Atlanta. That's an unfortunate situation in itself, but I think we're starting to realize that in some of these teams and their chemistries and their cases, I mean, everybody wants to be Oklahoma City. And with how SGA and Chet Holmgren and all their star players, they really got it working. So I think it's a good thing for John Morant to get a change of scenery. It's been years out of Memphis, but again, I thought this would have been a lot better of a build, but I feel like in the next coming days with the trades, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what teams do, addressing certain positions, addressing certain role players. But John Morant, this may be the end of it in Memphis. All right, that was the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the hot press.
As we're getting geared to watch the big matchup between Oregon and Indiana in the Big Ten. What a season, and it's been an interesting season for UCLA. And I'm also curious to see what in college hoops, how this program is going to be looking. So to join us to talk more about that, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. So let's start with the fantastic, entertaining game we got last night between Miami and Ole Miss. And to me personally, I've been saying this about college football. They are not in the happy business. You cannot make every college football program or fan base happy at all with just the teams that are represented in it. You get the 8 best out of the 12, and the others are just basically your fill-ins of ones. They're just winning it out because they have to win their conferences, and the other ones is the best records and their common wins. So to me, I watched that game last night. Miami deserves a lot of credit with just the team they put together, the style of play, the talent on defense, and it came down to was a one-possession throw. Whether people are arguing if that was a PI call or not, I didn't see it. He didn't turn his head around, and so to me, I thought that was a well-fought game. But looking at that, do people kind of have a different speculation about what we truthfully think about with the college football playoffs outside of the whole Tulane and James Madison whole argument?
I mean, I think Miami should have been in this whole entire season. The fact that they were kept out of the rankings in the top 12 for a very long time, that was a problem. That was an issue that they just decided to fix in the last day of the rankings release. But they should have been in this entire time. And we're starting to see now with the expanded playoff, you can have a 2-loss champion, if you will. And while I do feel bad for Ole Miss, they've gone through quite a bit. They fought their hardest. I thought it was pass interference. I'll be honest, Jake. It looked like it was pass interference, but it was great to just kind of forget all the nonsense, have a good game, go back and forth, and let college football be what it truly is, just a fun sport where the best of the best when the lights are the brightest have the most memorable moments in the semis of the finals.
Well, and because to me, I look at it this way. So obviously the college football committee, they ended up rejecting Trinidad Chambliss with his return back to Ole Miss. I'm looking at the way that Ole Miss played. And after the last couple of weeks with dealing with the Lane Kiffin transfer to going to LSU, and I got to give credit to a lot of this coaching staff, because to me, you dealt with so much in the coming days. The players are feeling a certain type of way, but Kewan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss, they were playing outstanding. And I'm watching throw after throw, and I'm like, those right there, if you give me an offensive-minded coach in the NFL, if he declares for it and he lands there, I'm watching Jackson Dart and what he's doing right now with the Giants, and I think if they upgrade, maybe get a culture setter like a John Harbaugh, you get somebody that can then get the right-hand man, we're going to be watching Jackson Dart moving around a lot, find accurate passes. But with Trinidad Chambliss, he's making a case for himself as far as his draft stock goes for teams that can be very quarterback needy up and into maybe the first couple rounds or maybe a little later on down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad that they didn't give him his 6-year waiver. What has he played, like 2.5 years, and the NCAA just can't figure it out? It's great to see that they're playing well. You talk about what P. Golding's staff is. I don't even know how much of it is his staff, right? With what's going over to Lane Kiffin, the back and forth over these last couple of weeks, how many guys could actually coach this most recent semifinal game? I'm pretty sure we're playing for a championship here, not a big pay raise or the market that Lane Kiffin is. But I think for Trinidad Chambliss, it's been a great story with what he did at Ferris State in the D2 ranks, was able to get elevated on the national spotlight with Ole Miss, get that job here in 2025 now to 2026. But at some point, you got to make the most of it. College football is now 5 to 6 years, and some guys only get 4 years. It's funny how that plays out, where some guys get waivers, some guys don't, but I wish the best for Chambliss. I know I'm not the biggest believer in the SEC as they start crumbling down, but I was rooting, in a sense, for Ole Miss to just kind of throw that Lane Kiffin nonsense out there and keep winning, even though Miami was also a great story in their own right.
Absolutely. So we got tonight's game, Oregon and Indiana, two of which obviously with familiarity with UCLA being in the Big Ten. And my big thing is, last time these two met, Indiana did whatever they wanted to in Autzen. And Fernando Mendoza, he's just throwing it. And he's got really good pass protection to where they are allowed to drive down the field. Defensively, they are highly motivated and highly physical. So I feel like this go around, and I love Dan Lanning. I think he's done great things in Oregon. And with Dante Moore, it sounds to me it's trending in the direction he's going to declare. So he'll be another top quarterback up and into this draft class with Fernando Mendoza. But that means we got to have a flawless game out of Dante Moore. The pass rush has to come alive against Indiana because they've been willing to protect. Watching that Alabama game, and how many times that the interior D line kept trying to fight to at least break through to get to Fernando Mendoza. They only did it most on the outside, but not much has come up from the interior side. So what's the game plan that you might see from this? Because I think quarterback play, it's going to be smart decision throws. It's going to be cancel out the noise that you know is going to get loud in this game. And then at the same time, trench warfare from the ground game, and then fighting for every yard, but then also stopping each and every potential yard that may come from the opponent's side and win the time of possession. What do you think?
For me, I think the biggest thing, what Curt Cignetti's been able to bring to Indiana is an arrogance, a physicality that when teams are trying to be on the rise, the Cinderella program that Indiana has gone from Cinderella to now favorite as the number one overall. So you got to bring a physicality. Generally, when you see teams come out of nowhere in the older days of college football, whether it's the BCS, the 14 playoff, whether it's Cincinnati making that CFP years ago, they just generally weren't as physical. Well, Curt Cignetti made that team a lot more physical last year, and then upgraded this year. You get the quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, and everything's just working and clicking to the point that they just outmuscle you, they out-tough you, and they out-execute. For Dante Moore, obviously having seen him in a UCLA uniform, taking a year off, sitting behind Dillon Gabriel, and then thriving this year in his third year in college football, we knew he had the talent. He easily has the arm talent and the ability to throw the ball all across the field. For him, it's can he avoid the big mistake? And I believe it was Mendoza who did have the mistake in Eugene, kept that game kind of close late. I know one of the biggest things is what Indiana's missing their big leg kicker, if I'm not mistaken. But if for Dante Moore, it might come down to a drive late in the game, they're down 4, they're down 5, or a touchdown. Can he avoid the big game interception that kind of plagued his UCLA true freshman year? And I've seen a couple of picks, but largely he's erased those in his Oregon year to 2. What can he do when the moment's on the line? Because you got the Heisman winner on the other side, and if Dante Moore's trying to surpass him as the 1 pick or be alongside him as the 2, he's got to have his Heisman NFL draft pick moment in this game if Oregon's going to win over Indiana.
Absolutely love that. So getting into now the focal point, UCLA. So first of all, this was quite an interesting season for them itself in this football program because
that's easily saying it. That's the easy way to put it.
Yeah. And so to me, the way that I looked at this was Deshaun Foster, they let go of him. And now they've got a new coach coming in. And to me, the way I look at the Big Ten, and when they first adopted USC, UCLA, Washington, and all them from the West Coast, once the Pac-12 was done, my biggest thing was in the Southern California area is that with USC, now the funny part is they were luckily able to figure out the defensive side of things because the Big Ten, they're physical. They're all about the trenches, run the football down and win possession, time of possession, because you watch Ohio State and Michigan and a lot of the other Midwest teams do this a lot. And so when I was fearful about USC, even though the offense was more pro, the only problem with it was, can the defense hold together a lot of that physical play? And the similar way I felt about UCLA, because you covered this team for a long time, and it's been quite a while since we've seen like UCLA make the moves as they did with the transfer portal and in the recruitment, to where we got to stack up our offensive line. We got to now have a D line that's going to eliminate and limit out the run game. And then in the pass defense, get as much guys that can play the man-to-man, but then have the spotter and the safety side, so that way when the ball's up, go and get it. And then the quarterback spot, Nico comes in. My personal opinion, I felt like this was more of a lifing type deal for Nico, because he was going to figure it out one way or another post Tennessee. So when you think about this season and now going to work with the transfer portal now open and the recruitment process is happening year round, what now has to be the story for UCLA to climb themselves back in? Because once after Deshaun Foster got fired, and then, of course, the game against Penn State, I kind of saw some potential right there for UCLA to make some moves and maybe build upon what they've learned up from last year.
Well, the Bruins had some potential. They had some talent on the outside. There are some guys who are still getting recruited from this most recent year on other Big Ten squads, and they're not low-level Big Ten teams. UCLA's leading receiver, Quasi Gilmer, went to Nebraska. One of their edge rushers went to Nebraska. So guys are still being picked apart from this UCLA roster in the portal and going elsewhere. Even Andre Jordan Jr., one of UCLA's DBs, was visiting Auburn lately. The big problem is when UCLA was successful, the last true year they were good was 2022. Chip Kelly had an O-line that had a couple of NFLers on it. The defense had some NFLers on it. You had Leatu Latu, you had the Murphy twins. You had some guys who were walk-ons at the time, Carson Schlesinger, who were about to burst on the scene, or Kane Medrano. So the last couple of years for Chip Kelly, he was blessed with NFL talent on his team, some of which hadn't jumped out on the scene, hadn't burst on the scene, but they were physical up front, and he had talented O-linemen. 23 when UCLA started to kind of take a tail back offensively. They weren't as physical up front, couldn't run the football. They had a true freshman quarterback. Then they go to 24. Chip Kelly leaves. He had really not truly gone into Southern California high school recruiting, focused on the portal, but couldn't get those 5 stars. The Bruins forgot that physicality. Deshaun Foster is left without a true physical front. Offensively, decent defensively, but not as good as that 23 defense. And then we saw it all fall apart in 25, where they weren't physical up front. They couldn't rush the passer. In 24, they were a good run defense. In 25, Utah ran all over them. Nebraska ran all over UCLA. They just weren't physical, and they couldn't truly get off the field on 3rd and long. So the big thing is, right now they have 20-plus transfer commits signed or about to come into UCLA. They're focusing on being physical in the trenches. If they can't, then it doesn't matter how many skill positions you get. They're just going to sit there and watch teams run all over them. They're going to sit there and watch teams throw it and sling it on 3rd and 10 like they did in 2024. It'll be a repeat. Bob Chesney, though, is a physical type coach. They ran the ball at JMU. The defense was very physical. 6 second-half shutouts with James Madison for their playoff team. I'm looking to see that identity brought to UCLA with better coaching, more coachable guys, and guys who are somewhat familiar with Chesney's system before he builds his own culture at UCLA.
And my big thing is with Nico Imalava, because, we know he's got the legs. We know he's got a good, talented arm. I just feel like there was some parts of his game, and when I watched up at Tennessee, it was like, I know he can make the throws, but there's times in which when he's facing like a Georgia, or he's facing Alabama, or even just the roundhouse he got against Ohio State, in the playoff. And my big thing is it's all about improvisions, because I think of it this way. We watched a lot of these quarterbacks in the NFL do this. Jalen Hurts at times, if he's not throwing the ball, he's improvising with his legs. Nothing wrong with that at all. And you know what I'd say about this with Jalen Hurts is I called him a UCLA name here for sure. The Russell Westbrook of the NFL, because he can drive. He can improvise. He can move a lot with his legs and not have to necessarily go for the 3 ball on oftentimes. So then when I look at Nico, I think he's got good amount of zip to where he can pass up for 20 plus yards, but now it's going to be the offensive scheme plan. So when you look at this, what's the expectation now? Because now coming back to UCLA, that means, look, I took a bit of a beating in the Big Ten, but I'm not backing away from what the challenges are going to be instilled for 2026.
The big thing is that Tennessee in 2024, they are physical, they could run the football, and Nico wasn't necessarily relied upon as much to lead that team to the playoff. They had a pretty good defense. Tennessee didn't have those same things in 25. They didn't make the playoff, even though Joey Aguilar, one-time UCLA commit, transferred over there in that Tennessee for UCLA switch. Going to Nico in 2025, started out with a first-time offensive coordinator. Tino Sunseri came over from Indiana, was trying to bring that Hoosier magic to the Bruins as the first-time true play caller, and it didn't work out. Then he had to go with Jerry Neuheisel, where it was a magical moment against Penn State, where Nico used his legs, made the plays. They looked as physical and could handle the Penn State front, which was shocking, which showcased, as you saw, some of the momentary magic. But it ran out, and the teams figured out if you put a spy on Nico and you don't let him run, then you got to force him to make the plays. And he took hits. He took hard hits. The Bruins couldn't protect. So Bob Chesney's goal in the portal is to get enough in front of him, enough depth to keep him upright. And the one thing we haven't seen, despite the lively arm, despite the ability to run, as athletic as he is, right? Sometimes he's scraping the ball on the ground, spinning out of a tackle to make a play. Can he make the reads? Can he make the mechanical adjustments as a big quarterback? He's a lanky quarterback. He gets his ball batted down by the D-line way too often for being like a 6'6" quarterback. He's a big fella. Maybe not in terms of weight and girth, but he is tall and lean. And if you need a 4th and short, no need for a tush push. He can just reach over and get a first down, get a touchdown. It's can he make the reads? Now that UCLA I think should be a lot more physical, James Madison's offensive coordinator, Dean Kennedy, followed Bob Chesney to UCLA. They ran with a dual threat QB, Alonzo Barnett III. Similar makeup as Nico, but Nico's bigger, I think faster. I don't really know the official numbers there. And he's got a more lively arm. So they got the same quarterback that they did at JMU, but bigger, more highly touted and hyped in Nico with the better physicality in front of him. Now it's going to be up to him to prove that he's worth all those NFL bucks in the draft in 27, that he's worth all the NIL dollars that he was asking for at Tennessee and coming to UCLA to prove that he's worth. So we'll find out if he's actually what he's been built up to be or not. But I think as long as UCLA keeps him upright, this is his chance to shine in an offense that's designed better for him than any other one could be.
Man, I'm excited for it because, like I said, I felt like there is definitely potential in this program. And now with a new coach, new vision, and really trying to attack the transfer portal, I'm really hoping, especially for just the whole Western region, with just, you go up to the Pacific Northwest and come all the way down to the Southern California region. I really am hoping that the West Coast makes a lot of noise to compete up with the Midwest teams that we all know are all built for physicality, all built for strong protections, but then also fighting for those times of possessions. I really am hoping UCLA, they get up and into this point, but it seems to me this new vision and the way that they're going to attack it seems very promising for a lot of boosters and for a lot of the fan base in Bruins land to really be excited about this one here for the future. Zach, appreciate you for coming on by, my friend. Enjoy the game tonight. It's going to be interesting to see Oregon, Indiana, who's going to be worthy of representing as the next opponent to take on Miami in the national championship. Take care, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, transitioning. 8 jobs open in the NFL and a lot of big shakeups that have been coming up and still yet to come in the next couple of days. But to join us as one organization who's now looking for a coach and GM to discuss about that, former tight end Ed Smith is joining us here on the program. I want to start with this because the NFL, and one of the biggest takeaways is and I've always remembered this even for as a life lesson, is usually when the money gets larger, the expectations and sometimes the issues, if things are not working, become much bigger than what they should, depending on it. And so now we've got 8 coaching jobs now officially open, including the Atlanta Falcons. So I feel like coaching has definitely changed up in a lot of years. The expectations with the money being larger from a lot of these owners. So if a team's expectations are not met, you're usually given the gettle, and now they have to look in a different future direction. So as you look at this for the Atlanta Falcons, I'm truthfully excited of the opportunity there because now a new coach, a new GM. My biggest prediction, I feel like this is a job that screams Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, because I watched Michael Penix, and it drove me crazy. I had former Atlanta Falcons great John Abraham on the show when he was up front, up there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, watching the offense. I'm asking him, I've watched drives where Penix is driving the field, and then they scale back. They're driving the field, and they're scaling back. I'm like, what are they doing up on offense? So to me, I feel they need an offensive-minded coach. Get the better scheme plan. Build your potential with Penix to see if he has it, because this is the only year to do so before tapping into a very bigger quarterback class next year. What do you think about that? I feel like this could be a very good fit for Atlanta.
It could be the prime. First off, thanks for having me on, Jake. The biggest thing is, I think Stefanski would be a great choice for the Falcons. The biggest obstacle I think they have in front of them is convincing Stefanski that this is the best possible option for him because of the amount of competition that's going to be out there, with the Miami job opening up. Obviously, Baltimore is open. We never know what might happen if Buffalo goes and lays an egg down in Jacksonville. So if this was one of those normal years where the worst of the worst jobs were open, I think Atlanta would be right at the top of the list. But because of the fact that everything is just so wide open with all these job openings, it's going to be a fight for him. Now, I'm right there with you. I do think they need to lead toward an offensive mind for that particular position, because we've tried it every other way, it seems. This last one with the defense, with Raheem, it just didn't work out. I think there was too much talent there offensively for them to, you look at what, Bijan, you got, tight end, you got quarterback, you got London, Drake, wide receiver, you got all these weapons, and they were so sporadic. And it's just one of those things where, hey, we've tried it the other way. Let's go and find us an offensive mind that could lead this brigade, and then go get us a great defensive coordinator that could tighten the ship up on the other side. But this is obviously, and I think that's why they let Raheem go, because they saw what they were wasting. You got Penix. Even with the offense even looked doable with Cousins out there. So that's saying a whole bunch. But they had nobody to lead them. And, I just think this will be a great opportunity as far as, like I said, it's going to be there are going to be a lot of teams out there looking to scoop up Stefanski. And this is a weird year, too, because we're not hearing a whole bunch about, like, the hot coordinator now. Normally, there's always one or two hot coordinators. That's the next guy. This is going to be the year for, coaches who've been coaches before to make their mark again. And like I said, it's going to be slim pickings after you get through with Stefanski and Harbaugh and maybe a couple others. So, man, you better put your best foot forward when it comes to scooping these guys up.
Yeah, and what's funny is with the coaching openings, because originally it felt like it was a crapshoot with as far as destinations wise and the guys coming in. And then next thing you know, John Harbaugh's let go after 18 years. Mike McDaniel now is fired in Miami. And so I'm like, oh, the coaching carousel kind of got a little better, because now there's going to be coordinators up for grabs. And then there's going to be, a head coach that either, I feel like the Giants need a culture setter. And I think John Harbaugh would be the perfect fit for that, because they have not gotten anything structurized since the timeline of Tom Coughlin. And I think they need to bring that back for John Mara's sake. And then, you look at Baltimore, they're not looking for a culture change. They're looking for somebody that can honestly fix up what happened on the defense and bring more trust and reliability to Lamar Jackson, who's winning 75% of their games. So I feel like Brian Flores would be a guy that could work. Maybe you bring in someone like a Mike McDaniel. I proposed this with Pittsburgh originally, and now I feel like with watching this weekend, if Pittsburgh's one and done, who knows if Tomlin is still there, and that possibility is still open up. But I'm like, now Baltimore is in the makings for this, and they would be feeling terrified if I'm Pittsburgh and they get that, then now that's just going to be running along with it. So this weekend is going to be a lot of fun. And first off, I want to start with the Packers and Bears. Now, this is the third time now that they're going to be facing off against each other. The Packers are beat up. Jordan Love, is coming back with an injury, and there's just not a whole lot really left for Green Bay, but that doesn't mean offensively they can't come up with different scheme plans to outsmart a Chicago defense that, first of all, they've been really good getting after the football, causing turnovers and forced fumbles. But for Caleb Williams, even though that he's protecting of the football and not turning it over, it's the plays in which he has to make the layups, because I know he can sling the ball 30 plus downfield, but if you're not making the checks and the unscripted plays, that might be a long night for Chicago. I still feel Chicago as an underdog at home is a little more disrespectful, but I feel like they have the opportunity to do so, but maybe Green Bay's got a little magic somewhere in there. What do you think of this game?
This is going to be the typical NFC North I call this one of those you remember Rock'em Sock'em Robots, man. This is going to be one of those type games. Just put them in the middle of the ring, and they're just going to battle it out. I always caution when I'm looking at like these first experienced quarterbacks in the playoffs. Everybody thinks the regular season is, it's just the extension of the regular season, so there's no prep. Man, I've been there before, and I know my first playoff experience, I couldn't imagine like going through a regular season and then everything like ratcheted up even more. And that's exactly what happens when you get to the playoffs in the NFL. You think this couldn't get any faster than this. How you go from training camp to preseason, then it ratchets, it gets even faster in regular season. There's no way it can get any more intense than this. And it does, because it's almost it's the epitome of like throwing two dogs in the middle of a room and saying, this is the only bone. You've both been starving. Here you go. Have at it. And that's what, because it's lose or go home. Your season's over just like that in an afternoon. And, for quarterbacks especially, they don't realize the pressure till it's on them when they're out there, because everything is on their shoulders. So I always worry, like a first playoff season or series for a young quarterback, we're going to see, like, is the pressure too much for them? And then, some of them we've seen where it has been, but then they bounce back, years later. So I think the advantage going into this one is Love has been there before. They do have a playoff win. They went and spanked Dallas a couple of years ago, I think it was. They've got that experience at least, and this is going to be new for Caleb. And you hit it right on the head, Jake. As far as layups, man, you just got to hit the ones that are right there in front of you. And if he has any problems with that and with the spectacular plays, it could lead to a really bad afternoon for him. So I'm going to be watching early on just to make sure like it doesn't look like too frenetic for him. He might miss a throw here, but he bounces back with a good one later. If we see repetition of nothing looks good, it could be a long day for Chicago. Me personally, for some reason I got Green Bay in this one just because of the coaching experience. First time in the playoffs for not just the head coach, but the quarterback and kind of everybody involved. And this, like I said, it's going to be a great game. It's one of the ones I love this weekend because we got the best of the best. I also hate it because it means our 16-game regular season weeks are gone and we're getting down to the last of football because we go from wild card to divisional. We got the conference championship. Before you know it, man, it's going to be Super Bowl Sunday, and then we got that long wait. But in the meantime, we got to sink our teeth in this one. This is going to be one of the marquee games of the weekend right here.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think that game, depending on it, when it comes to time of possession, when it comes to, obviously the scheme plan and whatever Ben Johnson has, because I look at it this way as Ben Johnson, being up in Detroit, we all remember what happened last year. I felt like his playbook got too cute at a 15-2 season, and then Washington just took advantage of it and did whatever they wanted to. So I'm like, Why would they stop running the football? I think is that the reason in which Ben is going to go into this game and go, I'm not doing what happened last year. I'm going to run the football and run the football for days until we end up winning those football games, marquee matchups like that. So another matchup I think is interesting, and people have been talking about it now, is the Rams and Panthers. To me, I love Matt Stafford, and he's been having an MVP caliber season. The wide receivers are talented, but we know the Panthers in their first matchup, they beat the Rams. Now, I feel as though I'm still taking the Rams in this game because I feel Sean McVay and his culture is, I'm not going to get embarrassed the second time, and especially when you're in a playoff setting. However, with Carolina, Bryce Young's obviously youngster, and now you got to think about the defensive front for Carolina as far as instilling pressures, finding ways for Matt Stafford to create and make mistakes. So I think that game, it either could be a runaway or it could be a shocking surpriser, depending on how the segues of the quarters end up going.
For me, this one is the Rams almost need to thank the football guys that of all teams to go on the road to and get embarrassed by was the Carolina Panthers. It was almost like a wake-up call. Next time you see these guys, you better not take them lightly. And, lo and behold, it could have cost them a first, the number one seed. Everything it did eventually cost them. So McVay, a lot of times you have to, get your team riled up. Hey, I know we're going over there and they're 7-9 on the season. Well, think about this. You were one of those 7 victories that they got. So as far as motivation, there doesn't have to be a whole lot. We were just embarrassed a few weeks ago over there. You better not let it happen again, or we're the ones that are going to be going home for the winter. So right off the bat, he's got motivation right there. And like I said, these guys have been there before. Stafford's been there before. You got a lot of guys with playoff experience. This is all in. The one thing that I'm hesitant of, man, you see that spread is up to 10.5, 11. And that can get you, that can get your head a little swole. And coincidentally, I was talking to my son today on the way home because we were talking about some of these games. He's 15 years old. We were coming home from school. And I reminded him, I was like, you know what? I was like, when I was in Atlanta a bunch of years ago, we were 11-point dogs going up there to Minnesota, and we kind of pulled that one off. So anything is possible. In this instance, I don't think it's going to be possible because I do think Sean's going to have them ready to go. It's the playoffs. This isn't for anything but all the marbles. And I think they're going to have their heads on straight. And like you said, Jake, I think it could be either competitive or this could be a game where they win by 15 or 20. I'm anxious to see, my son's, he's called, because coincidentally, he's a Rams fan. He's got his fingers crossed. He keeps giving me I'm just really scared about it. So I'm like, look, man, you should be okay. So, but I do think the Rams come away with this one with a moderately, as far as playoffs concerned, not easy win, but a confident win, getting them into the next round.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a stay away game for me as far as just the betting wise, because it could either be it's a very high risk, especially if you're asking for a team to win and yet cover. So that might be a difficult situation. One of the other games, though, that's interesting, San Francisco and Philadelphia. So a certain someone went up and onto the air and basically called this the Bizarro Bowl. And because we have 12 of 14 quarterbacks represented in the playoffs that are first-round quarterbacks. And now you got Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts. My opinion is Philadelphia, since they acquired Jalen Phillips, they got so much motivation on their defense to instill sacks, instill pressures, and get after the quarterback. Whereas for San Francisco, that quote-unquote easy schedule everybody kept talking about before the season started, that didn't look so easy when injuries started going down. But that didn't stop Kyle Shanahan from opening up more of his playbook, finding ways in which to get comfortability for both Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. Because without George Kittle, I felt like, Brock's not gonna have his reliable target until Tungus ended up coming around, and he's getting a bunch of looks. So I think in this game, it's going to be very physical as far as Philadelphia is concerned. But I'm more paying attention to of how both these offenses are going to look, because with Philadelphia, 4 straight games we've had 400 yards on the ground from Saquon Barkley. And I'm like, they got to run the football well. Jalen has to find ways to improvise like he did last year with just going and getting first downs and keep the ball on their side and wear out the defense. But then you've got San Francisco, who George Kittle's back. Christian McCaffrey's been on his healthy side, and he's only got the amount of weapons he has on his side. So I think in this game, it's a coin flip, but I'm thinking I have more trust in Philadelphia's defense than I do have of just both these offenses when physicality is now in the middle of play in this game.
If Philly stays to their roots, which is run the ball, throw it moderately. You don't need to make Jalen Hurts a star. If AJ Green starts reading books on the sideline, let him. This isn't a game where you just, he's over there pouting, so we got to start throwing him the ball. Their identity is running the ball, Saquon, 25 to 30 times. Jalen getting out there, picking up some first downs, 5 to 10 times with his legs, maybe a couple of design runs. You get the tush push going if you need to, and then you sprinkle some throw in there. If they do that, they're virtually, from time to time, unbeatable. When they get into trouble, when all of a sudden we got to try to make Jalen a star, or we got the wide receivers out there pouting because they're not getting enough action, so we got to start throwing the ball. And the next thing you know, because they can't cover up, that offense is not explosive enough to cover up any issues that the defense might have. And if that defense has any type of off day and they're playing from behind or playing with a team with equal firepower or keeping the ball away from them, they're in trouble. So their best bet is to run the ball, manage the clock, get as few or as many points as you need, and let that defense eat on the other side. But when they start getting cute, that's when they fall into trouble. For San Fran, I mean, they're like the walking wounded every year. You know, in our division out here with the Cardinals, we see it every year. It's like, golly, what are they putting in the water in training camp? But they somehow this year, because they went through the same things last year. This year they go from winning 6 games to all of a sudden almost being the number 1 seed, coming up 1 game short with the same amount of injuries, and that's not even accounting for the 2 players that they let go. The Denver took from them, defensively. Yep. So, I mean, Shanahan's doing an amazing job. It's just going to be, for me, this is it was styles make fights or whatever it is. This is going to be, for me, whoever style overtakes the other. And that means if, like, San Francisco jumps out in front or just gets, stops the Phillies run game, or and all of a sudden they want to start throwing the ball around, they're in for trouble. If the Eagles can get after Purdy, make him start second-guessing some of his first reads, and all of a sudden he's doing scrambling and they can shut down McCaffrey, this becomes a Philly game that imposes their will on San Fran. And that's what I'll be looking from the very beginning. I think it was up to like 6 points or something like that as far as Eagles. I don't buy that. I think it's going to be a much closer game. And in some circles, I might actually even pick San Fran to go over there and pick up a win because I'm so unsure about how Philly is going to attack this. But I'm looking for another There's going to be another marquee game as far as the weekend goes, man. I'm so excited. This is going to be such a fun weekend to watch football, man. I'm really excited.
So a hard question here that I think is interesting because it's more about predicting an outcome, and it's with these 2 quarterbacks, Josh Allen and I would say Justin Herbert. Josh Allen first. My big thing is this is the most wide open AFC that I think we've ever seen in a long time, with no Burrow, no Lamar, and no Pat Mahomes. And so Josh Allen, my problem with the Bills is they get so inconsistent with their defense because it's times in which they can play solid and times in which they just let 30-plus points get by them. And that's what really bothers me the most is now they have to rely on Josh Allen to put his cape on and have to save the Bills' seasons every time they're playing a game. Well, now they're playing Jacksonville, and Jacksonville has been kicking arse. And they have just been the team that they're making an argument. They could be a very good completed team with the way their defense has been getting pass rushes and how Trevor Lawrence hasn't even thrown a pick in a while. So this game, if Buffalo does not come away with this, I feel Sean McDermott, this is the end of the road. because I've been calling him the modern day Martin Schottenheimer because he's a good coach but cannot win the big games. And so that was where it was a lot of concern. What do you think about this? Because I really am hoping Josh Allen could pull it off, but if they don't, big changes. And I'm talking big changes, not even from McDermott, but even for Brandon being the GM, because they need to get somebody in this building to get Buffalo up on top.
I'm right there with you, everything you said, and then some. Of all years, with, like you said, the trio, Burrow be, not Lamar, no Patrick Mahomes, you would think like, well, the next man up has got to be Buffalo. You would think there'd be a 1 or 2 seed with the way this, and look at the season they've had. You're talking about an opportunity just slipping through your fingers, and if not now, when? Say they get bounced out this, early in the playoffs here, it's an indictment on the entire organization and not just head coach, like you said, GM. And the other thing is, you would have to think if they have an early exit here, where do you go? They're as far as the staff, because every year you have the meetings, it's like everybody comes in the room. Okay, well, what went wrong and how do we correct it? In my opinion, if you're ownership, you're like, I don't care what went wrong, and I'm not going to let you guys correct it. That was just, this has been a bad year. The only way they can rescue it is a long, deep run that ends in the Super Bowl at the very least. If they don't get there, then, as you mentioned, it might be time to clean house and start all over. And where does that leave, Josh Allen? I mean, they've got a lot of retooling. This would, of all the years, to not potentially not even have one playoff game at home because you just messed the regular season up that much. It's incomprehensible to me, and that's where they sit though. So the gauntlet is in front of them. They know they got to go down to Jacksonville starting this weekend, and that's where it all starts. Problem is, Jacksonville isn't Jacksonville of old. Jacksonville looks pretty doggone good, and I was one of those people that didn't believe in Jacksonville almost to the very end. You know when they got me? When they went to Denver and beat Denver, I was like, okay, I've been wrong all year long because I do these confidence pools and everything. I'm like, nah, this is where it ends. This is where it ends every week. When they went to Denver and won, okay, yeah, I'm a believer. I'm done. And that's what they're going to be facing. And it's going to be really interesting to see what type of game this is. As you mentioned, Jacksonville seems more balanced. Cohen, their head coach, he's really got Trevor playing well. They've got to go down and not just worry about that offense, but that defense as well. And if they shut Josh down, what's it going to look like on the other side? Because you got ATM running the ball. If this is one of those games where the Jekyll side of the Buffalo defense shows up and they want to give up one of those 35, 40-point games, then you can cancel Christmas because that's pretty much going to be it. But I'm really interested. This is going to be one that's going to show me, like I said, there might be a reason why some teams are like Harbaugh and some of those other potential coaches are holding off, because how cool, the first thing you want if you're taking over a new organization, quarterback, GM, that, and just think if you're the prospect of taking over Buffalo with Josh Allen, if you're a new established head coach. So we'll see. A lot of change could come from this game alone, and I'm right there with you. McDermott's got a lot to prove here, man. They got to go down there and get a win.
So my final question is, and I've been hearing a lot of the narratives all over and we do this all the time every year with these playoff teams. But my biggest takeaway, so Denver and Seattle are obviously number 1 seeds. To me personally, I have been watching Denver, and I live here in Denver, and I keep saying, why is it that I can't seem to trust Denver's offensive scheme plan? Jet sweeps, swing routes, and then not to mention these dump offs when they're trying to get yards after the catch. You got to be able to stretch the field. I know they rely so heavily on their defense, but if you truthfully want to be a competitive team, you have to stretch the field, any possession you get, because those are game-winning drives. So a thing that was interesting. So this NFL season has been full of surprises, and I think there's still some surprises. But would it surprise you, Ed? And I look at a team in which has a horrible O-line, has times in which they never get over the hump, or they're too overrated. The quarterback, 6 years, he's never won a playoff game. But it's coach and grit and fight. And they've got a quarterback in Justin Herbert that I'm like, if I look at this, it couldn't have landed any better, because New England is a young team. They're turning things around, but it's all about the trust process. Because if they get past New England, they got to face Denver again for a third time, and they already know the playbook. And that's where I'm like, do you see a world where potentially the Chargers could be the, no pun intended, shockers that end up in the AFC Championship?
It amazes how quickly things change. The Chargers, their biggest, I think, enemy for all the years has just been their reputation.
Yeah.
Anytime you talk about a team, they'll Charger it up, because we've seen them lose games, lose leads, fail in the playoffs. That's their entire existence. And now the difference now, though, is you got a Harbaugh in there that is, that dude can turn things around. And he's done it at both levels. He did it the year with San Fran years ago, went to Michigan, wins the national title, did it in Stanford, and he's got them. It's about mentality with them now. And I do see a world, I'm telling you, just like you, that depending on how, because I'm not so confident in one or two, meaning in the AFC especially. You got a young team in New England. Your schedule was really soft. But you do have to play who you play, though. But their experience, their lack of, I should say, who they played could come back to bite them. Denver's biggest problem, man, is so inconsistent at the quarterback position. And I know Sean, and no offense, I hope I'm not offending here, Sean Payton has been given the moniker of genius. He's got one Super Bowl just like a whole bunch of other people, head coaches, but he's supposed to be this master genius. I'm like, well, show me, And they put together a good season here, but I'm still, as far as I'm looking at Andy Reid with several Super Bowls. I'm looking at all these, and he's got his one along with, he doesn't even have as many as Coughlin in New York. I'm like, but he's just genius. So I'm waiting to see the genius. He's working with his young quarterback that he's so-called handpicked, and it really hasn't materialized yet. And who knows, that might be the downfall of the team, is that the defense is so good. But the thing about, and you mentioned it, in the playoffs especially, you got to be able to strike quickly. You got to be able to go down the field sometime. Everything can't be a 14-yard dump-off drive, because teams get wise to that. They start jumping routes. They take the shorter stuff away. They almost force you to go down the field. If you can't do it consistently, that's where you're going to come up short. That's where you're going to constantly be coming off the field. And, all year they've been playing with fire, falling behind. They have these comebacks. They have these score wins, and they add up after a while. But all it takes is one of those not to turn your way in the postseason, and you're going home just like everybody else. And that's my fear for Denver, is that they've had a great season. They're still on that learning curve as well, and don't let some of those tough lessons come back to bite you, which they could. Like I said, you fall behind, and next thing you know, you never get from behind, and season's over, or just too many times you're just dinking and dunking and not taking your shots up the field, and it just doesn't pay off. So it'll be interesting to see if one or two, meaning New England or Denver, even gets to the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. But I think, to go back to your question, I would not be surprised if a Chargers team did it. They've got all the elements other than health themselves sometime. With Herbert being dinged up, left tackle sometime in and out. They don't really have defensively. They've got some holes themselves, but the way everything could fall, I could see them, making a showing. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I watch their defense off the bye week, and since then, they haven't allowed more than 20 points on the opposing side. So they've been playing a lot of that physical shut down and find every way that you possibly can, whether it's a win or a loss. You find ways to end up fighting. So, yes, and the funny thing is, think about it. I've been saying this is a Peyton Manning roadway, because Peyton didn't get his first playoff win until 2003. So it's like something can happen. So yeah, it's going to be a fun playoff. I'm excited for this weekend. Could not wait for a better time than this. And we'll see what Monday morning is going to sound and look like by the time that we get there.
Yes,
Ed, appreciate you for taking the time and being up on here. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, the wild card weekend upon us, and we'll see who survives and advances and what questions we have for the teams that lost it. Appreciate you
having me on, brother. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, it's exciting when we get to these points in the NFL. And when we get into the playoffs, it's open season up from here. So I'm excited. I cannot wait. All right. I know we kind of ran a little later on than we wanted to, but however, I've saved the best for last. My top 10 NFL teams. The regular season is over. Boo-hoo, I know. It's sad. It's emotional. I get it. But I got the top 10 teams going into the playoffs. Let's take a look who makes it.
Rank them up.
Yeah, it's time.
Let's go, baby. It's all time right now.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Jake.
Sound commencing here.
Number 10.
All right, so my number 10 team is the Buffalo Bills. So first and foremost, I love Josh Allen, and I love the offense. I don't love the defense because, listen, say what you want to about inclement weather against Philadelphia at home. You should have been able to win that game because that's your elements. That's your home field. So Buffalo is now going on the road to a humidified weather in Jacksonville against Trevor Lawrence and Duval. This is going to be a tough, interesting matchup. But Buffalo, they've been fighting. Yeah, they've ran up the score against the Jets, but really, who hasn't against the New York Jets team? I got them at 10 for right now.
Number 9.
Number 9, it's the Chicago Bears. So again, listen, I'm not here to backlash. They're a very good team. Now, even though that they lost against the Detroit Lions, that doesn't mean that everything is lost for them. Caleb Williams in multiple spurts has protected the football well. The offensive line has been efficient, but the thing is, he has to be able to create efficiency in the games, especially on script, in order to be able to open the playbook up even further. And Ben Johnson, we know going into the playoffs, last time he was here, the playbook got too cute for Detroit, and they lost to a Washington team with a rookie-led Jaden Daniels, and everything unraveled. Hopefully he's learned his lesson from this one. The defense has been getting takeaways. I got Chicago up in at 9.
Number 8.
The number 8 team is Philadelphia. I love their defense. I love the fact that Jalen Phillips and company is getting sacks. They're getting pressures. And Adoree Jackson, by the way, has been playing really good quality football, but it's the offense. For 4 straight weeks, Saquon Barkley's only been rushing for about 100 yards per game. And what I don't understand is that with Saquon, they got to be running the football more often. And for Jalen Hurts, I have not seen a whole lot of improvisations. Now, this game against San Francisco is going to be pretty dicey, in my opinion. But I do say this. I think with Philadelphia, they have to be able to get on the same pages offensively, and defensively, they're going to be shut down against Brock Purdy. And they know they got George Kittle. They got a bunch of other weapons back in Christian McCaffrey, but I got Philadelphia with the physicality they possess at 8.
Number 7.
Number 7 is the San Francisco 49ers. Listen, they may be beaten up, banged up, but San Francisco, what an impressive season for them to come all the way to this point. They didn't get the number 1 seed, even though that they kind of look like a team that really should go for it. But they are getting George Kittle back. Christian McCaffrey's been running the football very efficiently well late in the season. And for Brock Purdy, again, you're tossing up between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. The one thing is, what Brock Purdy will I get? Because I watched the Chicago game, throw an interception, and then he's throwing touchdowns and running in for rushing touchdowns left and right. Am I going to get that game, or am I going to get the Brock Purdy that got shut down against Seattle? I don't know. But that's going to be an interesting takeaway and break With as far as with San Francisco in that game, I got him at 7.
Number 6.
Number 6 is the Houston Texans. I love their defense. However, I'm not a fan of their red zone offense. And for CJ Stroud, I watched some spurts. When they played the Chargers and beat them, here was the problem. They scored 2 touchdowns in 5 minutes of the first quarter and were completely quiet and silent all the way up until the last end of the quarter. So to me, Houston has a ferocious defense that's physical, and it's all D'Amico Ryans' identity. But if you're going to be facing against Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers, you better be getting pressures. You better be shutting down the pass game and finding ways to disrupt the passing game. And for CJ Stroud, do not be intimidated by a Pittsburgh defense. And that's one of their big takeaways. They got to be able to do well at 6.
Number 5.
Number 5 is the LA Rams. So against the Carolina Panthers, I could see them winning it, but let's be honest here. Even though with Matthew Stafford, the wide receiving core, and Kyron Williams, the offense has looked really good. But what's funny is, in like most teams in baseball that get eliminated, if you do not have the perfect setup and closer in this 7th or in this 8th and 9th inning, 9 out of 10 times you lose those games. You either blow the save and you lose the game. LA just has to be able to shut things down with, as far as their corners go on defense, get pressures, get hurries. And so I think that the Rams, this is a perfect matchup for them to get back at Carolina after they've lost to them in the regular season. So at 5, I could be comfortable with it. Let's see what happens.
Number 4.
Number 4, I'm not gonna lie to you. I got Denver. Listen, Denver's defense has been immaculate and it's been outstanding all season long. But as far as Bo Nix and company goes with their offense, I really did not enjoy some of their play schemes that they have. Listen, you don't even have to listen to me. Just watch for yourself. When I'm watching jet sweeps and swing routes and, these bubble screens just to go and get yards after the catch, that's not stretching down the field. That's more of you're trying to play safe, conservative ball, even when you get a team that is motivated, that's physical, that their bellies get hot, you are going to be exposed. And that's what Denver, the crazy part is Denver should be playing, honestly. But even with the first round bye, that's totally fine with other teams. But in my opinion, Denver's going to figure that out. But they have been a very good team all year long. I got them at 4.
Number 3.
The surprising team that really changed everybody's opinions on him is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them up at 3. Listen, Trevor Lawrence, this is the best season he's ever played with under Liam Cohen, and they got the Buffalo Bills, where I could see them potentially beating the Bills, and the Bills end up firing their coach and GM. But listen, Liam Cohen has been a heck of a coordinator with being around Sean McVay and then being with Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay and making Baker Mayfield who he is. Trevor Lawrence has yet to throw a pick in the last couple of weeks. And then at the same time, the defensive front has been very good getting sacks and pressures. Now, the only question mark has its moments is the corners. That's the only thing that's the question mark for Jacksonville, but they look like a balanced team. They've been blowing teams out by 2 or 3 touchdowns. And so I think Jacksonville has the opportunity to do it. I got them at 3.
Number 2.
Number 2, can't lie to you, New England. Mike Vrabel and company have done a great job with as far as a complete 180 turn and a 360 turnaround for this organization. They were off with Gerard Mayo and 4-13, and now they're a lot better of a organization than you thought. And so they win the division. They would have strived for the number 1 seed, but they're a young team that wants to play. But at the same time, you got an offensive line that's questionable. Outside of Harold Landry and Christian Gonzalez, who do I got on the defense? That's going to be a question mark against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. But the Patriots have done a fantastic job. Situational play. Mike Vrabel is the answer, and I think they've got a brighter future ahead of them at 2.
Number 1.
The team that's the number 1 seed right now in the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks, you cannot deny, are a physical, in the trenches, time of possession fighting team. And the thing is, even with Sam Darnold and his mistakes, they run the football well. JSN and multiple others find ways to get the playmakers involved defensively. I mean, Nick Manwari And the entire secondary, even with Devon Witherspoon, they've been very, very ferocious in the air. Seattle is, in fact, the best team right now that I look at, but there are going to be some interesting situations to come by after once the wild card weekend's over and who they face. All right, there you go. So the teams, obviously, that are in the playoffs, Packers, Chargers, and the Steelers are the teams outside looking in, along with the Panthers. But the team I feel more good about is the Chargers than I would of, let's say, Carolina, Pittsburgh, and Green Bay. Say what you want. They could be injury decimated, but that doesn't mean that Jordan Love and company won't be able to figure out some type of loophole in order to get them over the top. So it's interesting. All right. Appreciate everybody for coming on by here. What a fun week that we have had. Appreciate all of you guys. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the wild card weekend and enjoy tonight's game to determine the national championship against Miami, Oregon, and Indiana, who will be worthy of facing the Hurricanes in the national title game. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week.